I'm going to talk about general tremolo in this video, which is the kind of the bleeding edge of the liturgy music composition technique. In the previous video, I discussed special tremolo, and so special tremolo is really restricted to the guitar, and general tremolo is it's not restricted to the guitar, basically, and it's only really on albums. To put it in the most simple way, general tremolo expands the technique of guitar tremolo into other production elements in the music, like glockenspiel, and basically, I guess maybe on the one hand there are things like pitch percussion elements that I will compose parts for and put in, and then also things like the skipping effects, the kind of glitch effects that I add on to the recordings after the full band recordings are done. But to say that it's just adding, so in a way that sounds, so that's one way to make sense of it. It's like, well, those are forms of, if tremolo is kind of playing fast, a single note fast, the glockenspiels are kind of tremoloing, and the glitch effect is it's kind of synthesizing what tremolo sounds like, but there's a little more to it than that. I guess because the impulse behind it is not just to it's not just musical, I guess. It's also cultural. You might say that the aspects of liturgies, arrangements, and style choices that are controversial as a whole, like even the decision to incorporate trap production in unlikely moments, or things like that, using gagaku orchestra, those kind of really seemingly clashing kind of taste choices, those count as general tremolo too. And there's that's like a big part of what liturgy is and has been, not really intentionally, but it's something I've sort of grown to have a theory of more and more as I sort of have noticed it just happening. I guess it has begun to feel that there is a kind of ethics to bringing together styles of music that convey senses of identity or of political alignment, which clash with one another, to kind of break apart a sort of groupthink that music can be complicit in. I guess, or be complicit with. Are you complicit with something or in something? I kind of forget. And so there's this kind of critical, there's this critical edge to it, and so to go back to the comparison with Einstein's theory of relativity and special relativity and general relativity. Special relativity is the one that really just concerns light, and which is, at odds with conventional intuition, but not so difficult. That they say that the formulas that govern special relativity are not so difficult, whereas general relativity brings that theory of the speed of light into contact with the theory of gravitation, and I guess those equations are extremely dense and complex, and really sort of at odds with what you would think in a lot of ways, and general relativity is so it's so important to society, but it's this kind of gaping wound too, because it's difficult to reconcile with certain other aspects of physics, and there's something that, so in my music, there was no general tremolo until the arc work, right? Like the guitar technique in Reannihilation and Aesthetica and Immortal Life, that's all special tremolo. And then bringing in, choosing to sort of identify the music as black metal, and then bringing it into conversation with, not just screamo and math rock and noise rock and experimental music, but also trap music and classical music and minimalism, and to kind of do that in this way that I hesitate to finish the thought because I don't feel like I even fully understand what I'm saying. This is one of those aspects that I feel kind of driven by, and I've thought a lot about what it is, but I don't fully know. But what I know is that I think when I began really getting into music and really becoming acquainted with music scenes and kind of interacting, that there's always been something that I didn't like about scenes, that there's as soon as there's a scene, that somehow there's some kind of inauthenticity or some kind of co-optedness, really early on, even in really underground scenes, almost especially in really underground scenes, and so that I've always felt that black metal, that in Hegelian language, that black metal is sort of never really fully understood what it is, what it itself is. That there has been no black metal in and for itself, as Hegel would say. That prior to in the 90s anyway, that black metal was sort of only in itself, and that somehow by putting a mirror on black metal and showing black metal what it actually is, that kind of causes it to collapse. There's a kind of dialectics there where as soon as you really sort of understand what was driving you, it can no longer drive you. yeah. So general tremolo is involved in that, and like, those the aesthetic choices I make. Um, they're not conscious. Though I also don't want to be too. I don't want to make it sound like it's purely confrontational either. Um, like it's not just the musical aesthetics, though it partly is. And it is there is a confrontational aspect to it. Um, Sort of a kind of spirit of authenticity that is uh, hostile towards um, music being co-opted for evil purposes or for just kind of inauthentic, like herd mentality. Um, but there's also um, there's also something about General Tremolo. This is actually like a really big part of it. I could almost have started this video at this. Um, it reminds me of Arvo Pärt's concept of tintinnabulation. Maybe it was even inspired by his concept of tintinnabulation. Um, if you don't know Arvo Pärt, really listen to Arvo Pärt. He's so good and such a huge influence on me. There's a particular CD. I say CD because I bought it as a CD kind of a long time ago with Tabula Rasa and Fratres on it. The piece Fratres, the version with Gideon Kramer on violin, totally changed my life. Well, anyway, he so what it refers to is just this kind of like this sense of just beautiful, glorious madness of angels singing, of just a choir of angels that's singing. And for him, it had to do with sort of chopping up melodic phrases and sort of sending them around, and creating this kind of trance-like effect. And so it's like that, like as though bells are ringing, even though there are no bells ringing, and that's an effect that I really seek to create in liturgy's music. Not heard by a very high percentage of people who listen to the music, which is kind of interesting to me. Like to me, it's so obvious that it sounds like a choir of angels singing. But I guess with all the screaming and all the loud drums, that if you're not already acculturated to listening to metal, it's hard to hear. And then if you are acculturated to listening to metal, it's also hard to hear because a lot of people who like metal don't like the sound that I'm describing. But so that's like that a general tremolo is just this kind of like vibrating, this general vibration that sort of is made out of everything. And to the last thing I'll say is like to go back to the thing where like the archetypal version, that there are sort of two directions that the tremolo can travel. One is from the electric guitar to the glockenspiel, the pitch percussion, or piano. I do it with piano as well. That is exiting the sort of extreme music realm and going into acoustic instruments or classical music instruments. And another direction is going from the electric guitar to the recording itself. And that's really important to me. I think the music has this effect, maybe not for everybody, but the intention is for the recordings to have this effect where like there's a kind of short circuit in your perception of whether you're listening to musicians performing something in a room or whether you're listening to a recording. That like, Are you listening to sort of an indexical sign that's pointing to a performance that's being created by beings at a certain place and time? Or is what's happening the recording itself? And the kind of short circuit uh, between those two things, I find very sort of psychedelic, and I feel like it works because the glitching sounds a lot like the way the music does. Like glitching, like if you're doing that kind of glitching, like cutting up the file and messing with it on a recording that doesn't have special tremolo and the burst beat playing, it doesn't necessarily, like, it sounds very similar to what's already in the recording, and so there's this kind of I try not to overdo it. On some of the songs on 9696, there are versions where I really went in on this of sort of like having moments that like create a sense of like, is this a CD skipping, or I don't know why I keep talking about CDs. I haven't listened to a CD in like a decade, but is this a CD skipping, or is this a band sounding like a CD skipping? And yeah, I just think there's something kind of powerful about that. Yeah. General tremolo.